Okay, we have a couple people logged on. Just going to give it a couple minutes and then I'll start with our intros. Hi, everyone. We're just waiting for people to log in and then we'll go ahead and get started. Just want to welcome you all to the Restoring Health for Healthy Futures webinar series. And it's hosted by the Native American Food Sovereignty Alliance in partnership with Traditional Native American Farmers Association. And we have Mariah from NASA helping us out with tech today, and Clayton is here from TNAFA. For those of you that are new to NAFSA and TNAFA's mission, NAFSA is an organization dedicated to restoring the food systems and support Indigenous self-determination, wellness, cultures, values, communities, economies, languages, and families while rebuilding relationships with the land, water, plants, and animals that sustain us. And TNAFA's mission is to revitalize traditional agriculture for spiritual and human need by creating awareness and support for Native environmental issues. And together, we're really excited to bring you the 6th webinar in this 10-part series with Tyrone Thompson. It's entitled Food Forests, Gardening, and Climate Resilience. And I just want to put it out there to everyone that we are experiencing some interesting technical things, and Mariah has figured them out. So if something does go strange with the sound or anything, and we're not able to keep the connection, we'll just reschedule if it happens. If we notice anything funky with the technical results, but Mariah is a whiz and figured this out. So without anything further, I'm going to hand it over to Tyrone and let him introduce himself, and then we'll move on with his presentation. And if you want to put your questions in the chat, we'll keep our eye on those, and we can also wait till after. And we're going to be doing this as a presentation and a discussion, so we can jump in with those questions whenever too, if they're appropriate. Thanks for joining us, Tyrone. It's good to see you.
Hello, yat ebene. Shay Tyrone Thompson when she said not Jenny slow not Jenny Bashashin. Adot Kachini Dasha not Jenny Dashanala. So good morning, everybody. My name is Tyrone Thompson. I'm from the southwest portion of the Navajo Nation. My clans are Black Streak into the Water people, born for African American, and I'm happy to be here to present with you all this morning on food forests, gardening, and climate resilience through our practices. And it's been a real honor and pleasure to be able to work with both Native American Food Sovereignty Alliance as well as Traditional Native American Farmers Association. They've been very influential in a lot of our work, and it's great to have these networks and good partnerships.
Thanks, Tyrone.
I'm not able to see the screen, so if we could go to the next screen.
Oh, okay.
So I am a farmer who farms a little Colorado River Valley in northern Arizona. At JG Farms, we offer professional garden consulting as well as advocating for good health for both people and land through sustainable gardening. Our mission is to cultivate healthy, sustainable native communities through gardening. So we've been doing this for some time, and again, working with some of these networks and partnerships, as well as like Tuskwa Permaculture is where I started a long time ago with Clayton, and is how we started designing our home, our farms, and we try to extend that into our communities as well. Next slide, please.
I am on the second slide. Should I go to the third?
Yes, why farm and garden?
Yes. There you go.
So why why farm and garden on Navajo or Hopi or Apache reservations. On Navajo, for us, we live in what we call a food desert. We have over 27,000 square miles of land and only about 10 grocery stores that serve the entire nation. And so folks have to travel sometimes over an hour one way just to go get organic, healthy, fresh food, if that's available at some of these locations. So by farming and gardening, it definitely reduces our carbon footprint when it comes to traveling to go get these healthy foods and just to have them available. Most of the food that we consume on the nation is imported. A lot of us, up until the early maybe 90s, didn't have electricity or running water, so the shelf life of things wouldn't last too long. So a lot of things that were imported were a lot of the canned foods like Spam, beef, and different items like that, which we all know that isn't the healthiest foods. A lot of the food that is grown on the nation, including some of the livestock like the beef, is all exported. And so it feels like this is a broken food system that we have out here. So the farms and gardens are really they're really important for Native peoples to have out here, just to access local fresh food. Food related diseases and illnesses are because of this dysfunctional food system that we currently live in now. So one out of three of us is usually pre-diabetic or diabetic, and having to go through those health issues related to food. We also farm to school. It allows us to access good, healthy, local fresh foods right outside our classroom. So some of the schools that we work with, like the Star School in Northern Arizona, has greenhouses and gardens adjacent to each classroom. So out of each classroom, you're able to walk out into a garden, and that it creates a growing, living life lab where students literally grow the context for learning, and they have that access to fresh food. Economics on Navajo, I would say about 50% of us are unemployed. And climate change, again, is a real big thing, and it's real. We're experiencing it. We're watching it happen. Times are changing, and so all of these things are why there are good reasons to be localizing our food and farming and gardening in our communities and creating these food forces. Next slide, please.
Okay.
This is just a timeline of some of my work that I've been able to experience and how I got into gardening and farming. I started off in the early 2000s with my late mentor. His name was Justin Woolley. We would go across the nation and help building healing gardens. So some of the hospitals, schools, folks that were interested in having some of these gardens. And over the years, I've realized that these places and spaces are special, almost similar to a church, considering how significant these spiritual places are, and the well-being of the plants and the land and the water that really takes care of all of us. So North Loop Family Farms was the next place that I was able to really work at and help. We started off with 3 families. The farm was dormant when we started, and we started with a small grant. And by the end of 2010, I would say we were at about 30 families and at full capacity of how many people we could take care of. So we started having to turn people away. Fortunately, we were able to start up a few more farms, and now the Little Colorado River has a number of farming communities. Next slide, please.
Okay.
In 2014 and through 16, I was fortunate enough to work with the Star School as a Food Corps service member, where I was allowed to build a lot of these gardens. You can see some of the coal frames in the background there with the kids harvesting. I was also able to get the garden certified through the Department of Health. So the food that were harvested were used in the school cafeteria. So we were able to harvest it, fix it up, and utilize it to feed the students at the school. So that was a big opportunity. Next slide, please. Any questions so far?
Yeah, I had a couple of questions, Tyrone, and if anyone has any questions, you can put them in the chat as well. I was wondering, you said that the Loop Farm started with 3 families and grew to 30, and I was wondering how many acres that was, and then how much of the acreage was actually planted to feed those 30 families.
Yeah, so the farms, we have several sister farms, and they're each about 100-acre farms.
Mm-hmm.
We were not able to grow to full capacity, but each family would get either a half acre or an acre plot. So up to about 30 acres we were growing at one time. In the past, we've some of our elders have grown alfalfa and different cover crops in the area. So I believe that they were using the full 100 acres then. But we have not yet used that full capacity yet. And that's one of the challenges and opportunities as well.
Mm. And are all the families involved in the growing, or is there a specific group of people that are involved?
We have, well, I'm not at North Loop anymore, but we did have an open door policy. So we had folks come from as far as Hopi, Big Mountain, Hard Rock. So not necessarily from this community. We had people traveling over 100 miles to farm at our farm, and a lot of locals. So it was to their discretion. We just had, certain terms as far as organic gardening, no pesticides and things like that. And we all have the water to share. So it was really a team building experience, as well as just working with community members to serve everyone equally.
I love that, and my interest is also not just for the webinar series and asking these questions, it's also what we're trying to accomplish out in our territory out east as well, to create a place where we can farm and build food forests. And so that makes me extra curious about different ways that other communities have that set up. And I love the idea of making it open to community members that can come in. I often think, oh, people aren't going to want to travel that far in order to do that. But I mean, I travel so far to connect with the land and connect with crops and with gardens and with going out and harvesting off the wildland as well. So it's good to hear that as a reminder. Thank you.
Absolutely. I think these are all good examples, and we're always learning as we go. There's always challenges, and then from there we always find the opportunities as well. So this next slide, I was able to work with Chalani Lake Enterprise, and there we worked both for farms, water. We've we were able to get some solar water pumping systems across Navajo Nation as well as Hopi, to be able to show how we're able to irrigate utilizing the sun. And so North Loop Family Farm has the largest water pumping for irrigation system on Navajo Nation. We have about 74 solar panels that pump 360 gallons per minute. And so that allows us to alleviate and get away from the diesel generator that we normally would use to pump the water from our wells. And our wells sit about 150 feet down adjacent to the Little Colorado River. And just recently, we were able to work with another solar entity, Native Solar Renewables, and they were able to get us about an 8 kilowatt system at Beaver Farm. And so at that particular farm, where we pump water up to 25,000 gallon water tanks, and it allows us to gravity feed water back down. So as long as the sun's shining, we're pumping water. And so that's a really big thing. And just 2 days ago, we were able to work with another organization called Apex Technology, and they got us a Conex box, so where we're filtering water. So our water is kind of salty. So we're able to filter and make it into drinking water for our farmers out there. And it's really been a big thing for us to be able to watch that unravel as well. And Talani Lake Enterprise is a nonprofit, and I'm no longer working for them, but I still partner with them. And from my knowledge, they've served a big part of the Western Agency communities. During the pandemic, we were known to partner with them, and we had three different teams. We drilled wells, so there's a well drilling team. We drilled about 20 wells from Cameron to Birch Springs area, which is a span of about, I would say 75 miles maybe. So different farm sites, places like Black Falls that never had running water. People have been hauling water on these rural dirt roads for 30, 40 miles for years and years, have water for the first time, and a new farm. And my team was in charge of building hoop houses. And so we were able to construct a number of hoop houses in a 1 month span at these different farm sites, and giving people the tools to be able to grow different foods. We also had another team that was a water catchment team. So they were installing these water catchment systems like you see there on the screen with cisterns, enabling people to capture any runoff or rainwater. And that also ties into building, our food forests adjacent to our homes or our gardens and places of work. Next slide, please. I've been fortunate enough to be able to work with a few of our schools in our region, as well as building hoop houses and gardens across the nation. So as far as New Mexico, we've been out toward Page, and even off of the reservation, we've gone out and then work in areas like Prescott and Pace and different areas. But this picture here is a Little Senior School where we were able to do professional development for not only the staff but the students. And it's such a fun time working with students. There's a food forest sign in the back, and we were able to start translating a lot of these terminologies into Navajo and start writing in Navajo. So beyond is what we describe our food forest as. And then we get into compost, the different types of corn, squashes, they all have their own special names. And so again, when you get into the school environment, we really are able to create a living life lab to where the kids are able to go out and explore and experience some of these different foodways. And when we do create these spaces and places, it is amazing how much oral history comes out from our teachers and our elders, things that are not in textbooks. They are taught out of these places and spaces. Next slide, please. So through the school programs, we were fortunate enough to be able to get greenhouses and gardens. So as I began to start purchasing some of these greenhouses, we began to learn how much our climate, our winds, especially out here in the Southwest, how detrimental they are to some of these structures. And so this structure was up for maybe a good month or so before it blew away to a whole nother neighborhood. And that's part of our story of why we got into the business of building the hoop houses, is because of our high winds and the extreme challenges that we face out here in the Southwest. We have such a short growing season. Again, high winds, the heat's getting hotter, the lack of water. So all of these things that are challenges become opportunities as well. Next slide, please. So another challenge that I faced when I was working at North Loop Family Farms, I previously was a marble and granite fabricator by trade, and so I was used to making quite a bit of money. And when I got into gardening and farming, I started learning about grants, and that was something that was totally out of left field, and I didn't have any idea about what the grant writing world was, or anything about receiving grants. So through North Loop Family Farms, we received $100,000 grant, and that was it enabled me to become a farm manager and run irrigation for folks on a daily basis while getting paid. But I found that not as sustainable as I would have thought. When your grant runs out, then it seems like people just stop. So I listened to my mentor, Justin. He would say in Navajo that "sha" is a bad word. "Sha" means to have your hand out, or "sha" means to have somebody do it for me or do it for us. And so that's the way the grants felt. And working with Tulane Lake Enterprise, I learned a lot more about grants and helped in writing some of those grants. But it always felt like we always had our hand up. And so for me, showing gardening to be economically viable was a model that I wanted to bring forth for people. And so we got into business as Chiji Farms a few years back, and we started to do these farmers markets while producing not only fresh produce and food, but in the beginning of the year, we grow thousands of seedlings. So we're able to bring that to market before the season even begins. And it allows us another avenue to revenue. And again, this is not working only by myself. I've worked with several different partners. So Change Lab is a Native American incubator on Navajo Nation, and they really help boost our capacity to do what we're doing and to think the way we're thinking. So not only the farmers market, but again, professional garden consulting. We've built over 100 hoop houses up in our region. And it goes across the board. It goes across to New Mexico, closer up to Albuquerque, and up toward Utah as well. So we're really kind of out there. But those are a few of the ways that I've been able to get away without looking for grants, because I'm not a grant writer. I'm a worker bee. So I like to get my hands dirty. I like to work, and I like to be part of the farms and the people on the ground. So we're the boots on the ground, and we do not depend on any grants to make our business go forward. So, but it's not saying that grants are a bad thing. We've used several different grants to help build capacity in different areas and regions, such as our local senior centers, schools. We've been able to pull resources in to help them build hoop houses, help them with irrigation, help them with compost and what have you. So it's not that I'm totally knocking those grants and stuff. I just wanted to be able to show that we can do it without asking for help. And through the different organizations, again, like Traditional Native Farmers Association, Native American Food Sovereignty Alliance, Tisqua Permaculture, is how I started designing my home, my business, and it extends out into my community. Next slide, please. So again, we started designing different places and spaces in our community, one being at Talani Lake Enterprise, to where we planted an orchard. And to this day, those trees are about twice the size as we see there. That was probably about 10 years ago. But they're starting to bear fruit, so it's really rewarding to see and to feel. At Talani Lake Enterprise, we were able to run an organic gardening course that ran for about 8 months with our teacher and mentor, Kim Costian. And so behind the solar panels there, you have a 100-foot hoop house as well. And those plants that you see on the right are what get planted in the hoop house, and our tomatoes and cucumbers, what have you, will grow all the way to the ceiling and come back down. And so it allows us an abundance of food right outside our doors. The other things that they grow are some corn, beans, squash, melons. Asparagus has been really popular for us these past years. We've been able to get them established, and they kind of take over our little really awesome vegetable to have. The kids don't let it grow long enough for us to have enough asparagus for the whole family. They'll eat it raw right out of the garden. So which is awesome, because that's what we want our kids to be able to do. We also grow a number of different berries, blackberries, raspberries, strawberries. I think that the berries are really good, especially when it comes to the students, because we want them to be enticed to gardening and farming. A lot of times when we get out to our large fields, it's a lot of work, and it kind of dissuades them. So when we introduce them to the nuts or the peaches, the fruits, they really it really intrigues them into getting into gardening. And as they grow their own food, they're more likely to taste it as well. So I know I grow a lot of kale, Swiss chard, and lettuces. And those aren't the most popular amongst kids, but if they grow it, you would be amazed on how they like to taste it. Next slide, please. And so this is us at Chiji Farms. I try to do some better photos, but my phone wasn't working too well for me. So this year we grew a lot of sunflowers, and the kids were really intrigued by that as well. Right behind the sunflowers is my asparagus patch, and my asparagus is just growing out of control. So our goal here at Chiji Farms is to be able to capture all the rainwater, in which I'm still installing some of our systems, and we utilize that in our home. And then the gray water that comes out will feed our little food forest. So we have cottonwood trees growing outside. We have grapes. We have blackberries, raspberries. The asparagus again is kind of taken off. We're experimenting with growing fruit trees under some shade cloth. So in the left hoop house there's a couple peach trees and a couple apricot trees, just because we experience around April time, the temperature starts playing tricks on us. It'll heat up during the day and it'll get cold at night. And so the trees will set their blooms, and oftentimes we'll get a late frost, or we have very, very high winds in the spring. So April, May is notorious for 60, 70 mile an hour winds. So when our blooms get set on, they normally get blown off or they freeze over. And so to be able to protect them is one of our experiments, again, here on the farm as a Living Life Lab. We've worked with our soil. We have a really big clay loam. In the background, you can see that there's no windbreak. We're pretty much in the middle of the desert, and our growing season is pretty short here. So to be able to have the tools like a hoop house or a greenhouse to be able to extend our season is a huge tool. So some of the hoop houses we'll cover in plastic. These two hoop houses that are on the right are both covered just in shade. And I feel like the shade is really beneficial about 3 times out of the year. So spring, summer, and fall. If we want to grow year round, then we'll use the plastic. And for the winter, we'll only grow cool crops. So your lettuces, chard, spinaches, things of that nature. This past year, we were able to start our onions in January, and that's what we see on the left as a bunch of onions started. And we're companion planting with tomatoes, lettuce, and different veggies. So next slide, please. And here's my little family. We have 3 boys and 3 girls, and they all participate in the gardens and the farms. My oldest grew up at North Loop Family Farms. I used to live on site of the farm way back in the day. And now we have chickens, we have sheep, and then of course all the fresh vegetables. So we're able to harvest our own eggs, our own meat as we need. Again, when the pandemic started, we were considered essential workers, and we were able to hire about 25 people through our region from Cameron to Ganado to be able to provide locally healthy fresh food, because as we all know, some of those things were not available at that time. We were also making medicines and distributing different things like food boxes and water, as well as some of the like garlic tinctures and medicines that we're helping to be able to compile amongst ourselves as a cooperative. And so those are just a couple of pictures of my kiddos, my little girls harvesting the eggs and tomatoes, cucumbers, and which we have a bunch right now. We have a lot of tomatoes. So next slide, please. Here are some more pictures. On the bottom left, there is our attached passive solar greenhouse that we have attached to our 2-story hogan, which not only allows us to grow right outside of our door, but it also helps to heat our home. So we don't build as many fires now as previously we used to. I'm able to grow about 20 or 30,000 seedlings a year, and that is we work through CSA as well as farmers market. So at the peak of the season, I'm doing 2 to 3 farmers market a week, as well as serving 1 5-star restaurant, La Posada in Winslow. So at the top there, you can see a couple of our boys have squash blossoms, and it's a delicacy for some of these restaurants to receive some of those blossoms during the peak time of the year. And then we do grow a lot of greens as well, so a lot of lettuce, chard, spinach, and what have you. And our hoop houses, as you can see in the middle there, the tomatoes and cucumbers, they just love it. They grow all the way to the ceiling, and it's a pretty cool environment when you get them up to that stage. And then my baby Layla to the right there with one of our little lambs. And so it's a full-time job, but it's really rewarding to be able to stay at home, work with our children, and grow food for our community and our family as well. Next slide, please.
Tyrone.
Yes,
Can you
sir.
hear me? Since you mentioned that about having the food, close by, and maybe you've been at this for a while and doing a lot of work within other communities in the area. Having fresh vegetables available, without having to go that 90 miles or whatever one way. Have people noticed changes in people's personal health?
Absolutely. We have some of our farmers, that they are diabetic, and they know that these changes have to be made, and some of them dive right in and go 90 at restoring their health through these foodways. So I do know some farmers like toward Cameron area that have absolutely changed their way of living, the way of thinking, the way of eating, and it's you can see the change. You can see the change in people. I can see the change in my family, myself. I used to drink a lot of soda pop back in the day. No longer do that, and I'm learning how to utilize some of these foods, because a lot of us aren't accustomed to eating kale or Swiss chard, and we don't know what those things are sometimes.
Right.
So later in my slide, talk about food literacy, but that's kind of our end game as well as Native community members, food service workers, and so we've been able to work with a lot of Native chefs to be able to learn how to utilize some of these foods and to make them enticing. A lot of elders would ask me, "What is this stuff? What is all this green stuff? Why are you feeding us? What do you think we are, sheep?" And so it's been a learning curve for a lot of us to be able to learn how to utilize a lot of these highly nutritional foods. So, but to
Right.
answer your question, yeah, I've been able to experience that, and that's part of the reason why I am so passionate about my work, is because I have family members that are diabetic and have lost their limbs, their
Right.
first their toes and their feet, and then they're almost their whole leg to diabetes, and to be drawn to wheelchairs. So that's again what drives my passion as well, to be able to bring healthy things to our Native communities, and to be just to be aware of what we're doing, and how we're living, how we're thinking about our foods, and how we're related to them.
I know you grow a lot of kale out there, and one of the young ladies that was out here this last summer in the design course, she's making kale chips. So we tried to grow kale this year. This is my first time growing kale also.
Awesome, awesome. That's one of the favorites for the kids. We made the kale chips inside of our bread ovens, and we would sprinkle a little bit of granola bar on top of the kale to make it a little bit more enticing, and the kids ate it up. Again, when they grow their own food, they're more likely to want to taste it and experiment with it. And when you're doing things like kale chips, or massaging of the kale, they'll eat it up, and you'll be surprised at how much our kids will eat good food.
At the end
Yeah,
of this, we need, I'm going to
I-
ask for a recipe.
I'm sorry.
I said at the end of your presentation, I'm going to ask for a recipe.
Absolutely. So these pictures are just some more of hoop houses being covered. This one's out at Beaver Farm. It's close to Grand Falls, if anybody's familiar with our area. But the hoop house is a 100-foot hoop house. And the picture to the left is a picture of our garden, where we're doing experimental things with hoops and trellising. The asparagus you can kind of see in the background there. And a cottonwood tree that is only 3 years old, and it's about 30 feet tall. And so that's another thing that we've been working on bringing back into our region, is the native cottonwoods. And I'll talk about that a little bit more on one of these next slides. So can we move to the next slide, please? So we've been privileged and honored to be able to work with some of our senior centers and schools. So we not only do farm to school, we work with Birch Springs Senior Center, Loop Senior Center, and Talana Lake Senior Center, to where they each and all have a hoop house, and we're able to do presentations. I think it's very valuable. Some of these senior centers are adjacent to our schools and our young learning centers, so the youth are right next door to some of these places. And again, when we create these spaces and places, I really feel like it creates an environment to where we have a lot of teaching, and a lot of our teachings are orally. So again, they're not going to be in a history book or in a textbook. They're going to be out there with our elders, and through us, we're able to communicate that to the next generation. And so I really value these spaces. The schools will oftentimes bring students out. Yesterday, I had a group of about 20 high school students that were out to visit the farm. So we are able to give them a tour and show them around, show them the different possibilities of what we have, and as well as them providing a service. So service learning is a big thing for us out here, as we're able to engage the students either at a senior center, or at a garden or a farm. So the partnership and networks are a pretty big thing. Again, through the school, through Star School especially, I've been able to get several greenhouses out to the community. They are acting as our fiscal sponsor for our agricultural co-op right now. So that's a big thing, just to be able to have that the partnership with these guys. And again, it draws you to a lot of elders, a lot of knowledge, and it connects. We're able to connect with the kids as well, and show them the accessibility to their own food, and give them a history of their food waste. Next slide, please. So this picture is a picture of a community harvest fest out in Old Jato, Utah, which we were able to partake in a few years back. And the picture to the right is a greenhouse at Little Singer School that was not wrapped at the time. Now it's fully wrapped, and there's growing beds inside the greenhouse. One of the things that we're able to bring again is the culture and the grounding of the significance of the way that we're growing food, and the way that we've been taught, the tools that we were given from our ancestors. So to the right, I'm holding our traditional planting stick, and for us, we've been told that these will get us through hard times. So the male individuals are usually given the planting sticks, and the females have stirring sticks. And we are told that these are weapons against hunger, poverty, sickness, and they will always keep us thinking going forward into the future. At the senior center, it was very moving to work with some of the elders there. We brought folks to tears as they said they forgot, or they haven't experienced some of those native foods since their childhood. So it really brings back memories from a long time ago with a lot of our traditional foods. Next slide, please. Here's a little bit of the harvest from the cornfield, one of our young ones, harvesting corn there. And the two pictures to the right are more pictures from Old Jato, Utah Senior Center. And you can see us making the traditional foods again with the corn husk, the corn cake, and then the kneel down bread. So to the right, using the earth to cook underground. So I had several different pits that I had going at one time. And we also cooked the sheep head underground there, and we're able to share that with community. But this is a lot of the traditional cooking, and you can see the lady there with the steering sticks patting down the blue corn as she made a big blue corn bread underground as well. So some of these ways of doing things are being forgotten, not utilized as much anymore. Some people use a conventional oven, but to be able to know how to utilize the fire and the earth, to be able to cook our foods. We cook a truckload of corn on the ground at a time, and that's how we make our neshiji, our steamed corn. The way that we're able to preserve it over winter for over a year, I'm sure to keep for 10 years, and that's a part of our food sovereignty as well. Next slide, please. So with Chiji Farms, that is our home garden and farm. Again, we haul water, we harvest water, but it's nowhere near the size of what we're able to do at our local farms like Beaver Farm and North Loop Farm. So you can see the abundance of produce that we're able to harvest during the peak of the season. That's a whole truckload of squash to the right there. And that's only one field. And my son Ruben there in the middle with his large zucchinis. These farms are very important to us. They're adjacent to Little Colorado River. I think that farming is the #1 activity that we could do that shows that we're utilizing the water, because we're in water litigation rights right now, and water is life. So to be able to show that we're utilizing the water, farming is probably the #1 activity that we can do to show that we're utilizing that water. So again, with the farm at North Loop Family Farms and the solar system, we were able to put on a water meter. So for the first year, I know that we were pumping over 5 million gallons of water a year. And that is not only for the farm, but that's shared with a neighboring community, Tulani Lake, their water users association. They utilize the water. They have several storage tanks that is within about a 15-mile span, so where we're pumping water up the hill about 15 or 20 miles, and then they gravity feed that to different water tanks to be able to run range management units. So they're utilizing the water to revitalize the health of the land by moving the cows around using the water, if that makes sense. So they'll let one area kind of recuperate, while the cows graze on a separate section of land, if that makes sense. So again, the meter allows us to show how much water we're actually using, because some of the water rights that we've heard in the past have been kind of ludicrous, as how much water we're entitled to as a family unit. Sometimes it's only like 100 gallons a day, and we have to be considerate of the Navajo and Hopi, because we're really mindful when it does come to water. We don't play with water. We don't have golf courses in our neighborhoods. We don't have
Tyrone, I think we might have lost you on the audio. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it sounds like we we lost him.
Did I get-
There you
did
go.
I
Oh,
get
there you
cut out?
go. We got you. You're back.
Did I get cut off?
Yeah, you're back now.
Okay. Where did I leave off at?
The last thing you're talking about is water rights and how on Hopi and Navajo we don't have golf courses.
Yeah, we don't have golf courses, and we don't have swimming pools in every backyard, so we don't play with water. We're really mindful of how we utilize our water. And I just wanted to just share that with you all, that farming and gardening is again the #1 activity that I think that shows that we're utilizing the water going forward into the future.
Mhm.
Next slide, please. Just more pictures of our squash and our corn. To the right there, we have an abundance of carrots, mixing and mingling with the lettuce. So they are a companion plant. They grow well together. But we were able to grow over 100 pounds of carrots this last year. Unfortunately, we had huge floods this year. So our farm was underwater. I think that's on our next slide. Or no. But it'll be coming up. We had about 5 feet of water. So our tractor was underwater. Our hoop house was underwater.
Wow.
It brought in, it was good and bad. It did bring in a lot of good sediment to the farm. However, the weeds loved it as well. So they grew out of control too. So we had a huge weed problem this year, but we had a lot of good moisture and a lot of good sediment and debris that was brought into our field. So we were very grateful for that. Again, I've been able to build over 100 hoop houses in our region. So with teaching of some of our elders, we started developing an agricultural co-op. So our co-op consists of a variety of different people from different areas, and we don't always get a big turnout all the time, just because our region is so vast and rural and gas prices and what have you. But we do have people that are invested and want to work together to make the co-op work. So we started out as Doko'oslid is our sacred mountain to the west, the San Francisco Peaks. And that was our agricultural co-op, but I think we're moving into changing our name and we're going to finalize our logo, I think tomorrow, but it's going to be the LCR Agricultural Co-op, the Little Colorado River Agricultural Co-op. And this enables us to work together based on kinship of working together a long time ago. We used to work together through plans and communities and help each other. And even beyond that, with the tribes, based on the needs of the people, the tribes would get together and gather the food. They would hunt together. They would do different activities together. And as we evolved into the 20th century, now we all our closest clan member is our phone. That's the only people we communicate with, or the only people we look at and talk to. So to be able to work as a co-op and bring people together and work as a clan or kinship, it is really rewarding. It's a lot of fun. It's nice to work hand in hand with the next farmer to help him build his farm or build his garden or plant or harvest or shear the sheep. Are a lot of the activities that we will do together. So in these pictures, we were visiting different farms. One was in Snowflake, and showing them the different techniques and ways that other people are doing things. And then the one to the right is a tree nursery workshop. So we conduct several workshops, work parties, again, around planting, harvesting, harvest fests, kickoffs, you name it, we've done it. We've planted thousands of onions, thousands of garlic together, corn, squash, harvesting of corn, cooking of corn, and you name it. We've probably done it, and also helping each other with some of the hoop houses to be able to rewrap, or if they want to change a cover. It's much easier with 10 people rather than doing it by yourself. And the time seems to go by so fast when you're working with all these great folks. Next slide, please. Yeah, and this just extends of the co-op. You can see how many people will gather. Sometimes we will only have 5 or 6 people, and then other times we'll have like 20 folks. So it's really rewarding to be able to share knowledge, to teach the youth, to learn from the elders, to listen to the stories, and then to get our hands dirty together and to go plant a field or plant an orchard, install a rain catchment system, or install a hoop house. So to the right there's some of the Delcon youth that were installing their own greenhouse in their community as well. And then to the left is Roberto Nutlow is in Pinon as one of our co-op members presenting on something or the other. I'm not sure what he was presenting on, but we were doing seedlings that day and planting in the field. So there was a number of activities that we were able to do. I think we're even showing people how to make their own potting soil and how we start our seedlings at our farm. And so we're able to do a variety of different workshops to really build capacity amongst our gardeners and our farmers in the region. So anything from seedlings, soils, drip irrigation, to harvesting, and then the end game again is to be able to show folks how to utilize some of these foods. I grow hundreds of tomatoes, but I don't eat them. So I will make them into a salsa or marinara sauce, and I consume them that way. But I don't eat raw tomatoes for whatever reason. My kids love them, but I'm just kind of weird.
Make some ketchup.
Yeah. So yeah, we do. Those are a lot of the workshops, and again, it's really beneficial for a lot of people. One of our co-op members is a young lady named Rain, and she's only about 12 years old, and she's really into gardening. She got her first hoop house this year, and it's really exciting to see that the youth are picking up on some of these ways of doing things. And we have a young man, DeAndre Francis in Pinon, who has been growing pinon trees from seed, and so that's really nice to see. So when we talk about climate change and we're bringing these different trees back into our regions, it's really beneficial for us to be able to have these trees grow. The other ones that we're working on doing, and we'll be having our first workshop in November, is around the fruit trees and how do we start them from seed and the best practices around that. And that's been something that the co-op has really been really influenced by and really motivated to be able to bring their own fruit trees into our region.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of us, again, here on Navajo, we don't have so many fruit trees through our history. A lot of those places were burned and taken away. So to bring those back and to establish something for our next generation is really huge for us. Next slide, please.
So as you move to this next slide, Tyrone, I just wanted to give you a time check that it's 2:04, and let everyone know that if they have any questions, they could put them into the chat or the Q&A, and we'll check on those, and we can relay those questions to Tyrone. And I know once you finish up the slides, I do have a few questions, but I'm enjoying the process here, but I definitely want to touch back on some of the food forest things that you're talking about.
Okay, I'm sorry, how much time was left?
We have 25 minutes left total, so that would include conversation and Q&A.
Awesome. Okay, I think we're about
wrapping up.
A little more halfway through.
All right, great.
So the next slide just shows us convenient again as a co-op, saving seeds. We're doing asparagus seeds there. The other picture is us out in Cameron doing some outreach with growing tables and sharing with folks out there that just received a new hoop house. Next slide, please. So the water is important. We have to have water while we're gardening and farming. Again, for some of us, we have to haul water. So that could vary on the scale of what we're able to do. Sometimes it gets a little bit much to be able to haul water and pay for that gas price. But to the right, there's our farm flooded. We see how much water it is. And so the hoop house there, you can kind of see a vague line of the water had receded about 2 feet. So the hoop house actually was almost about halfway underwater, as well as our shade house there.
Wow.
And the different structures in the background, as well as a huge tractor that we had out there. It's way out in the distance. You can kind of vaguely see it. But that was almost underwater. We were fortunate enough to be able to drain all the fluids and refilter those fluids. To the left there is the 8 kilowatt solar system that allows us to pump the water up the hill to 225,000 gallon tanks. And in the back there is our Sacred Mountain Docoa sleeve. Next slide, please. For us, composting is a big thing. We were able to purchase a dump trailer, and that has allowed us to bring in all that fresh compost. You see how it's steaming? That's some good stuff. NAU, Northern Arizona University, does a composting program during the summer months. And we're able to get about 4 yards of compost per load. And it's has been really beneficial, especially for the hoop houses. We're able to pretty much install almost instant gardens when we do a raised bed, or we put compost out in the garden in different lines or different formations. It allows us to plant right away. We do compost at home in several ways, and then the picture to the right is out in Vanderwagen at Skeet Farms, and the way that they were composting is in these bins. And it's compost is very important. When we look at our landscape out here, we don't have much organic matter on the ground. And anything that is organic would probably be considered in some type of invasive weed, which would be considered maybe carbon or nitrogen. But again, we experience these very high winds. We're in a desert, so we everything, all of our topsoil blows away to Colorado. They want to sue us for our topsoil melting their snow in Colorado. But when we see these hoop houses, they're able to hold the compost in place, and these different beds. I've put compost out on some of my garden beds outside, only to watch all of the compost blow up against the hoop house, and everything's up against the hoop house. So as much as I try to water it and keep it in place, sometimes again, the wind just will blow it away. Another way that we've been composting is growing our own green manure, like a cover crop, and then being able to keep our soil in place that way. Next slide, please. The lasagna beds is as a method of gardening that we learned from. Hey, Clayton, you're there. You are right there. Another method that we've learned to utilize our compost by burying it in place. So a lasagna bed is usually 3 to 4 feet wide by however long you want to make it. So a lot of our beds are usually about 50 feet to 100 feet long. You can see some folks on the left there burying some compost. We'll usually dig up an area about 3 feet by 3 feet, a shovel depth deep, and we'll take out any kind of weeds, roots, and normally we'll lay down cardboard to help mitigate the weeds, and the cardboard will biodegrade. And then we usually put a layer of manure down, say about 1 inch to 2 inches of manure, and then about 5 or 6 inches of straw. So straw bale being carbon based, it really allows us to be able to hold a lot of moisture, and it kind of fluffs up our garden. So once we're finished with the lasagna bed, we put the native soil back on top of either our compost or the straw and the nitrogen. It allows us to compost in place without our compost blowing away. And our root systems will thrive by reaching the straw with that holds the moisture, and then below that would be the nitrogen, so it would have its natural food waste to be able to grow toward. And the picture to the right was part of Clayton's design course this past year in northern New Mexico. So we were able to build the lasagna beds as well as help with the waffle gardens there in one of the backyards next to the Acequias canal system. Next slide, please. And the hoop houses, again, this is one of the things that we're known for. To the left there, you can see the hoop house that was still, we're still under construction. We install these in concrete, so they don't blow away. Again, we get 60 to 70 mile an hour winds out here. When we first got into getting people hoop houses or greenhouses, so we found out some of them would just get ripped apart or beat up by the wind. So I started looking into how to construct some of these hoop houses. So we got our own hoop house, our own hoop bender. So we bend our own hoops, and we've been able to construct over 100 of these in our region, and they vary in dimensions. So the widths of them come in either 12 feet, 16 feet, or 20 feet wide by however long. So I can do 12 by 12, 12 by 20, 12 by 32. Common size is like 16 by 32 is a really nice size to work in. Some of these ones that you're seeing here are some of our 100 footers. So they're 100 feet by 16 feet wide, which is a pretty awesome space. And again, we do cover them either with plastic and shade or just shade cloth. And there's benefits to both. And there are different ways that we're able to vent them. We install vents at the end, we install doors. We also do roll-up sides, so the sides are able to roll up on some of these hoop houses. And it allows us to get ventilation and receive some of the pollinators as well.
Wow.
Next slide, please. There's my youngest and my nephew. But they'll follow us up to some of these build sites as well. Again, the hoop houses are throughout the region, different chapter houses, all the way out to Page, Ganado, Tisto, Greasewood. The hoop house all the way to the right is some of our native squash, the striped squash. We trained it to go over the hoop house, and so we had huge striped squash sitting on top of our hoop house this last year. It was pretty awesome. So again, we've been working on tree. I'm sorry, the next slide, please. We've been working on tree nurseries, and we've been working with a farm out in Camp Verde called Bluebird Farms with one of our in-laws. He's Jacques Sharon is an in-law to our Sidnah side of the family, and he was able to get a farm out toward the Verde Valley, and the soil is really fertile there. So we've been propagating cottonwood trees. We have hundreds of trees that we've been bringing back out to our region to reestablish in our area. Those of you that are familiar with the Little Colorado River, we've been overwhelmed with some of our salt cedar and the tamarisk. that have been introduced to us by the Army Corps of Engineers for erosion control, but they have taken over our environment, and they're just really detrimental to the land and the people, as well as the river. It's making the river dig a gorge, and so when the water flows, it flows even faster by us, rather than letting the land reap the benefits of the river water. So again, speaking to climate change, I think the trees are a huge testament of what we could be doing to help change our climate. And again, this month, or in November, we'll be starting to work with the fruit trees, and I think that's really a good thing as well. So if anybody's interested in any cottonwood trees, feel free to reach out and let us know.
Me, awesome.
Yeah, for sure. We're totally we have a bunch, so we have more than enough to share.
Yeah, it's really inspiring the work that you're doing with the trees, because out east here we're talking about and currently thinking about trees that are growing further south of our more snowy, cold region, because we do see those changes coming, and we do know that that we could start bringing these food forest trees up sooner, and getting them used to the area that they haven't previously grown in. I wonder if you see that in the short 10 years that you've been growing these fruit trees, have you been able to use, and I don't know a lot about like grafting of fruit trees and things like that, but have you noticed that the trees are adapting, the ones that you're bringing in?
Yeah, it seems like they are. And then again, we're experimenting with some of the hoop houses as well, to be able to just try different environments. But they are adapting to the area. It seems like they're growing. So we didn't have trees before, so it's just really nice. This year we were able to eat our first mulberries. The birds were super excited as well. But yeah, they seem to do well as long as you're able to get water to them and nurture them. I think they'll adapt to your area.
And I was wondering too about Clayton asked earlier about health outcomes changing and what you've noticed, and I was wondering, some of the elders, the older farmers that are in your community that you work with, what have they talked about? Do they have stories about, how, I mean, I know, like, for me, one of my elders, she talks about how, like, there's no diabetes, there was none of these things, and suddenly it really just has, we've really succumbed to a lot of these diseases now. And so going back to the foods that she talks about, that we would get from the forest, the animals that we would hunt, and some of our efforts to have community gardens and shift that, but we're farming in ways that we didn't have to, maybe like 300, 400 years ago, because we were relying here more on animals that we hunted, and food that we could get along the way as we were out in the woods. So I'm wondering, like, changes that your elders and the other farmers might have seen as well in health outcomes now that things are shifting, and especially with climate change. Like, are they noticing climate adaptation with the plants and things like that too?
Absolutely. And it's really sad because this year I probably lost 4 elder farmers that we've been farming with over the years, and it's just it's really hard. One of the things that they used to say was, our fast food were those rabbits. Now the fast food is McDonald's, and so it definitely gives you that perspective of what we used to do, and things that kept us healthy, kept us moving. The foods that we ate really we're feeling the effects of it now, I think. as again, we evolve into new systems and new ways of thinking, living. It's so much easier just to get up and go to the grocery store and pick up what you need rather than to grow it and to watch it and to nurture it. And that's where a lot of the hard work goes into. That's where your blood, sweat, and tears are invested in. And so I definitely see that as one of the things that has been told to us, has been shared with us, is it's important that we know our identity for us as Navajos as the corn, to know where we come from and to know how we're related to them, and know the significance of it's not only a food, but it's a very sacred ceremonial product. So it goes along, it goes into our songs, our ceremonies, and it's just it's a part of us. It's our identity as Navajo, Hopi, Apache people. So I definitely agree with you that the elders have a lot of stories and things to share with us, and it's just really sad because again we've lost several of our older farmers, and those when I look back and I look at them, they are some of our hardest working people, and I think they knew the significance of what it was to grow your own food. But they would be out there all day in the fields, and their fields would look nice, good, and well taken care of, and in return, the fields would give them an abundance of food, and they were healthy. Our older generations were living up until 100 years old. Nowadays, folks are having a hard time getting 60, 70, 80 years old with all of these different types of food related diseases. So I definitely think it's all related.
I just want to give you another time check too, Tyrone. We have about 7 minutes left.
Okay, I got one more slide.
Okay, great.
So food literacy I think it's important. Again, it's our end game when it comes to growing food. You can see some of the dishes that we've created using our own fresh produce, all of our lettuce, different carrots, making our own vinaigrettes, salads, and then utilizing our own meats, and then topping it off with a little bit of our own mint. So the only thing I didn't grow on that plate was strawberries. To the left, I did a mutton stew with neshiji, it's a steamed corn. And then all the way to the right, again, is more of the kneel down bread using the herb to cook. And again, I think food literacy is just very important to be able to get people to show them how enticing the style can be, and how nutritious it can be as well. Next slide, please. So this one is just a picture of the little ones by the farm when we got flooded, and it's just letting us know that it's okay to get dirty. That's why we're called Chiji Farms. It's nothing.
Yes.
So we don't use lotion, and a lot of times this is the way we look. And that's then our next slide is just a thank you. And if you have any questions, here's my contact information. But I can answer any questions right now if we have time.
Nicole, did we get any questions in the chat?
One just popped up there. Let me check that. Okay, someone wants to know, Katrina Albers wants to know, can anyone join workshops, and how do you find out where and when they are, if you're offering those?
We usually post them via Facebook.
Okay, what's your Facebook handle? Is it the farms page?
Tyrone under my name, and then Chiji Farms as well.
Okay. All right, so if you want to get a hold of they can get a hold of you on there and just see updates on your personal Facebook page as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Or you can email me.
All right. And I don't know. Is your email up on that? I can't see the full.
It is.
Okay. I can't see the full slide.
farmerty@hotmail.com.
All right. There we go. Yeah, I'm really excited and feel really inspired by all the things you share, and I can't wait to take these teachings back to my community members as we develop our ideas around having a farm and also having woodland areas that we are going to be creating these food forests in. So it's a totally different landscape over here, totally different climate, but very similar, in terms of things that we want to institute. Because even here, we're noticing water shortages, fresh water and clean water shortages for farming. So a lot of the things you touched on, like the solar water pumps and the water catchment, like people out here we haven't had to think about water catchment, but now wells are starting to run dry towards the end of summer, and I think that's going to just keep increasing. So it's good to hear a lot of these things from that you're putting together now so that we can have these conversations in our community here too as we land back some of these areas for growing. And I don't see any other new questions that are coming up. And Clayton, do you have any questions?
Yeah. It's actually maybe a question to you, Nicole, or to Tyrone. You mentioned earlier that you were selling the squash blossoms, and we eat those too, but I like to get the professional opinion on the health benefits of eating squash blossoms. I'm sure there's some vitamins or minerals that they produce.
Yeah, I think with the same as with the squash, I mean, you're getting the flavonoids from the color of those I don't know, I always think of like sprouts are kind of the sprouts of plants are always the super nutritious things a lot of times. So maybe the flowers like that too, but I'm not totally sure.
Be interesting to look into.
Yeah.
I had a question for Tyrone. I know I've been out to some of those places, um, and to Loop Family Farms or North Loop Farms. You mentioned those 70-mile-an-hour winds in the spring. Had that been historic, or is that something that's been coming up recently?
As long as I've known, as long as I've been farming out here, it's usually around April, where if not maybe 50 or 40-mile-an-hour winds, it's still pretty high winds.
Right.
But yeah, once in a while we'll get those really, really vast winds, and I'm not too sure. I'm not old enough to know if we used to get those back in the day, but I remember as a boy we would get a lot more snow. Now we don't receive that much snow. We used to get a couple feet of snow.
Right.
Now we're lucky if we get a few inches.
Mm-hmm.
With the soil erosion, I had that question too. I was thinking about how the corn and the squash that have been being grown there for a lot longer than some of these newer plants that are being grown in the hoop houses, are they able to withstand the winds and the soil erosion?
Where we're at, the soil is not so much eroding. But those plants do the best in our region as far as the climate goes, and the winds and the heat. The corn and the squash are the number one producers out here. I would say compared to any other crop. If we tried to plant something out in the field that wasn't adapted to this region, they just get beat up and they don't really last. I know that Roberto Nutlewis out in the Black Mesa region has been doing a lot of field restoration work. So building
Mhm.
gabions and check dams and
Nice.
growing food behind those dams has been really beneficial for those folks out there because they have a big time erosion problem out there. As they are at the top of the watershed, we're kind of at the end of the watershed, so we're right next to the river, and it's not for us. These areas have been farmed for multi generations, and it's kind of an area known for farming.
All right, we're at the end of we're at 2:30 now, 2:31. So yeah, if you wanna say anything in closing, Tyrone and or Clayton, I just really wanna thank you for coming on, Tyrone, and sharing all the hard work that you've been doing, and the work that you're carrying on from your family, from the past generations. And yeah, I've been watching your work since I think it was when Twyla brought you down to that food sovereignty conference down in Arizona. So it was really great to meet you down there and watch how things have been developing for you and your family, and the work that you've been holding really close to your heart and sharing with everyone, and all the teachings that you have. So thank you so much for that. And I wanna leave it with you and Clayton to say any parting words.
Awesome. I just want to thank you guys for having me, and it's also been an honor to be able to work with all of you, to learn from you guys as well. And we're always learning. We're always trying new things, and I hope it inspires people to keep farming and moving on and going forward in a positive way.
Thank you, Tyrone. I know you touched on quite a bit, what you've been doing out there. And again, I've also been watching through Facebook, all your work, all your activity. And I told you that one time I get exhausted just watching see how much work you're doing out there. But this whole series is on health, but there's all sorts of ways to, I guess, define health, physical health, but also a lot of, throughout the whole your presentation was also about building I guess community health, not just the physical health, but the health of your community, but other communities out there in Navajo and even beyond. And I think to me that's the end I guess product, if you will, of those gardens, of those hoop houses, of those food forests that you're growing is a healthy, strong, resilient, and sustainable community. Thank you again, Tyrone.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Mariah, for holding the tech together.
Right.
You're welcome. And Tyrone, I will be giving you a call about hoop houses and stuff.
Awesome. Thank you guys.